Hallelujah. 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 The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. An argument arose among the disciples about which of them was the greatest. Jesus realized the intention of their hearts and took a child and placed it by his side and said to them, "Whoever receives this child in my name receives me. Whoever receives me receives the one who sent me. For the one who is least among all of you is the one who is the greatest." Then John said in reply, "Master, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we tried to prevent him, because he does not follow in our company." Jesus said to him, "Do not prevent him, for whoever is not against you is for you." The Gospel of the Lord. Today is the feast of St. Cosmas and Damian. St. Cosmas and Damian, you may recall, they are often mentioned in the Eucharistic prayer. They're in the first Eucharistic prayer at Mass. And St. Cosmas and Damian, in my opinion, are very fascinating. There's a very famous basilica dedicated to them in the city of Rome. It's called the Basilica of St. Cosmas and Damian. One of the things that's interesting about that basilica and many of the other basilicas in Rome, now, as you know, Christianity was not legal in the Roman Empire until the 4th century. So for basically the first 300 years of Christianity, Christians always had to live with the recognition that persecution could break out at any moment. That happened very often in the early church. That's one of the reasons why Tertullian once said that it is the blood of the martyrs that is the seed of the church, because despite all of the martyrdom, all the persecution and suffering, the faith continued to spread throughout the world. And so in the year 313, the Edict of Milan was created. The Emperor Constantine made Christianity legalized. And so after that, in the city of Rome, the Christians began to dedicate all of these formerly pagan temples, and they made them into Christian churches. And it's very interesting when you know the history of some of those churches and why they chose what they did. On this feast of St. Cosmas and Damian, if you read any lives of the saints, all of them will mention that there's a basilica dedicated to them, and it used to be dedicated to some pagan gods. That's what most commentaries say. But what's interesting is when you do some research into who those pagan gods were. Does anybody know what the temple of St. Cosmas and Damian, before it became a church, may know what the pagan gods were? I didn't think so. It's kind of interesting. So basically, St. Cosmas and Damian, that basilica, it's just outside of the Roman Forum, And so next to the Roman Forum was where all of the Caesars, tended to be buried and to be active. Many people considered them as sons of God, And this temple where St. Cosmas and Damian is built, it was dedicated to the pagan gods Castor and Pollux, which again is very interesting. Castor and Pollux were a couple of characters from Greek mythology who were twin brothers who had a special love for the poor and for doing good deeds. And so because of that, at the end of their life, Pollux, one of the brothers, was rewarded with an opportunity to become immortal and basically to live in the stars, with all the other gods. But the only thing is that his brother was not going to have the same opportunity. And so he was granted the choice. Do you want this to happen? Or do you want to have a sort of split immortality with your brother? And he chose to have a split immortality with his brother. So one of them would basically be in the heavens one day, and the other would be in the depths of the netherworld, the other day. So he chose to sacrifice his full immortality for the sake of his brother being able to become immortal with him. St. Cosmas and Damian, the Christians recognized, were also two twin brothers, who had a special passion for service to the poor. They were doctors, and they used to treat people with no cost at all. And the Christians, when they were dedicated this basilica, where that former temple had been laid, they saw St. Cosmas and Damian as sort of a Christianized version of Castor and Pollux. That these two brothers who loved each other and loved the poor, in a mysterious way became immortal. And so Cosmas and Damian, likewise, right, through the Christian faith, because Christ, the Son of God, right, decided to become poor and share his own immortality with all of us, right, these brothers likewise were able to become immortals in heaven. St. Athanasius once wrote that the reason why Christ became man, right, the reason that God became man, was so that man might become God. That was the radicality with which all of the Christians began to evangelize all of their fellow pagan people. They were trying to reveal to them that at the very heart of Christianity, right, unlike in our modern age where we tend to think of Christianity as just like a bunch of moral precepts, right, they saw how radical it was. That Christians believed that if they followed Christ, they would literally become immortal, like gods, partakers of the divine nature, right, according to 2 Peter. Something that we as modern-day Christians, I think sometimes we don't recognize just how remarkable and amazing and radical that claim is at the very heart of our faith. And that's one of the things that we recognize on this feast of St. Cosmas Damian.